Hi, everyone. In my years managing risk and financial assets, I lived by a very dangerous rule. Once a transaction was finalized, it was written in stone. In the leaden world of insurance and high-stakes finance, we believe that the past is a fixed liability. We're taught that if a day was bad, if a deal fell through, or if a financial loss occurred, it was a permanent data point in our history. But as I transitioned into a life of quantum sovereignty, I discovered a secret that the system desperately hides from you. Your brain doesn't actually finalize your reality the moment it happens. There is a golden window of approximately 72 hours where the ink of your daily experience is still wet and the neural plasticity of your brain is waiting for your final audit. This is the 72-hour rewriting method. It is a sophisticated hybrid of Neville Goddard's revision technique and the hard science of neural pruning. Most people carry their failures into their DNA because they replay their leaden events over and over, effectively baking them into their long-term memory. But a sovereign strategist knows how to intervene. By using the specific state of brainwave coherence before sleep, you can literally rewrite the neural pathways of your day, replacing a memory of scarcity with a memory of expansion. When you do this, the universe no longer has a leaden anchor to hold you back. It only has the golden blueprint you've just encoded. In this video, I'm going to show you how I used this method to erase the corporate ghost of my past and build a life of absolute liberty. We are going to look at the biology of why this window exists and how you can use it to checkmate the matrix. If you are ready to stop being a victim of your past and start being the editor of your future, leave a comment with the word rewritten. Make sure to subscribe to the channel to join our laboratory of experts. And remember, the links to the books and free materials to help you master this 72-hour window are in the description. Let's begin the audit. Now let's step into the core architecture of this protocol, the neurological window of reality. I'm going to explain exactly how your brain processes the ink of your daily events before they become a permanent part of your identity. When I was deeply involved in the corporate world of insurance and finance, I operated under the leaden assumption that once an event happened, it was a fixed data point. If a negotiation failed at 2 p.m., I carried that failure as a solid weight for the rest of the day, the week, and often the year. I didn't realize that my brain was actually in a state of active consolidation for at least 72 hours following that event. In the world of neuroscience, we call this the synaptic tagging period. It is a biological grace period where the tinta of your reality is still wet and the neuroplasticity of your brain is waiting for a final audit before it decides to archive that memory into your long-term DNA. You see, your brain is not a camera, it is a projector. But before it can project a reality, it must render the images from your daily experiences. During the first 72 hours after a leaden event, like a financial loss, a professional setback, or an argument, your neurons are firing in a specific pattern, trying to determine how much emotional importance to give that event. If you spend those 72 hours replaying the disaster, feeling the lead of the stress, and talking about it to everyone who will listen, you are effectively stamping that event with a permanent seal. You are telling your brain, "This is who I am now. This failure is my new baseline." This is where the matrix wins. The system is designed to keep you in a state of high alert beta waves, so you never take advantage of this golden window. It wants you to stay in the leaden static of the problem, so you miss the opportunity to edit the code. But as a sovereign strategist, I learned that I could intervene in this biological process. I realized that if I could rewrite the event within that 72-hour window, I could prevent the leaden memory from ever reaching my long-term storage. I could effectively prune the negative branch before it grew into a permanent tree of scarcity. The biology of this is fascinating. Your brain uses a process called long-term potentiation, LTP, to strengthen the connections between neurons. When you have a leaden experience in the corporate world, your amygdala fires a burst of stress chemicals that tags those specific synapses. But those tags are temporary. They are like sticky notes that say, "Pay attention to this."
If you don't reinforce those notes with more leaden emotion over the next 3 days, the brain's natural cleaning system, the glia cells, will eventually come in and prune those connections away during your sleep. This is the ultimate checkmate. You have the power to decide which notes stay and which ones are deleted. When I was transitioning from my corporate career to a life of quantum sovereignty, I started treating my brain like a high-level financial ledger. At the end of every day, I performed a reality audit. If I found a leaden transaction, a moment of doubt, a fear about my assets, or a stressful interaction, I didn't accept it as a final balance. I knew I had a 72-hour window to correct the books. I would use the state of theta coherence before sleep to enter the editing room of my mind and rewrite the script. I wasn't lying to myself. I was strategically engineering my future neural pathways.
Think of your life as a series of Fibonacci spirals. Each day, you are adding a new curve to the spiral. If you add a leaden curve of failure today and don't edit it, the next curve at the 8 or 13 or 21 stage of the sequence will be built upon that same distorted geometry. But if you catch the 1 or the 2 early and rewrite it to be golden, the entire trajectory of your future expansion changes. This is why some people struggle for decades. They are building their 144 stage on a foundation of leaden memories they never bothered to audit during the 72-hour window. The neurological window is the only time when you are truly free from the past. It is the only time when the data is still fluid. Most people wait for the 3D world to change before they feel different. But the sovereign expert knows that the 3D world is just the ghost of past neural patterns. If you want a new result in your investments, your consultancies, or your personal freedom, you must first rewrite the internal ghost. You must use the 72-hour window to ensure that only the golden blueprints are being archived into your subconscious. This is not positive thinking. This is neuro-architecting. We are talking about the literal pruning of synaptic pathways and the firing of new golden connections. By refusing to validate the leaden events of your day, you are starving those neurons of oxygen. You are telling the system, this event does not represent my sovereign signature. I reject this data point. When you do this consistently, you become vibrationally invisible to the old world of stress and insurance risks. You become a match for a reality that is as precise and elegant as the golden ratio. In my current life, I don't hope for a good day. I audit every day into greatness. I know that even if a leaden shadow appears, it only has 72 hours of life, unless I give it my permission to stay. I have reclaimed my editing software. I have moved from being a recorder of the matrix to being the director of the field. This is the level of power that is available to you when you stop seeing your brain as a static organ and start seeing it as a dynamic golden antenna that can be reprogrammed at will. In the next section, we are going to dive deeper into my personal transition and how I had to confront the corporate shadow during this audit process. I'll show you how to identify the leaden patterns that are hiding in your daily routine and how to prepare your consciousness for the actual rewriting protocol. You are the master of the ink. It's time to start writing in gold. We're moving now from the biological theory into the practical excavation of your daily frequency. Let's talk about the corporate shadow, the heavy, invisible ledger of stress that keeps your DNA antenna anchored to the system even after you've left the office. When I was deeply embedded in the world of insurance and high-stakes finance, my entire identity was built on leaden validation. In that environment, your success is measured by how well you manage crisis, how much risk you can absorb, and how many hours you can sacrifice to the system grid. I didn't realize that I was carrying a corporate shadow, a set of subconscious neural patterns that prioritized struggle over ease. Even when I had a golden day where my investments performed or a consultation went perfectly, my brain would immediately look for the leaden catch. It was a form of vibrational sabotage. I was so habituated to the stress response of the corporate world that my neural pathways were literally starving for cortisol.
This is what the matrix does. It makes you addicted to your own limitation. The audit process is about identifying these shadows during the 72-hour window. In finance, an audit is a cold, objective look at the books to find discrepancies. In quantum sovereignty, you are auditing your emotional transactions. Most people go through their day accumulating leaden data points, a rude email, a dip in the market, a moment of self-doubt, and they let these points sit in their subconscious ledger without any correction. By the time 72 hours have passed, those points have been validated by the brain as permanent truths. You are effectively signing off on a bankrupt reality. When I began my transition, I realized I had to stop being a passive observer of my stress and start being a sovereign auditor. I had to look at every leaden event and ask, does this transaction belong in my golden spiral, or is this a ghost from my corporate past? This is a level of frequency engineering that most people never reach. They're too busy reacting to the 3D world to realize they are the ones writing the script. But as an expert who has managed millions in assets and navigated the leaden pressures of the system, I can tell you the only asset that truly matters is your vibrational signature. If your signature is filled with the shadows of the past, the fear of not being productive enough, or the guilt of choosing freedom, you will always manifest a reality that requires hard work and sacrifice. You are effectively coding a ceiling into your own expansion. The 72-hour rewriting method is the tool we use to delete these shadows before they become hardwired into your neural architecture. I remember a specific moment during my transition when a major consultation project seemed to glitch. In my old leaden life, I would have spent 3 days in a high-alert, anxious anxiety, calling everyone, obsessing over the how, and effectively validating the failure. But instead, I performed a shadow audit. I realized that my anxiety wasn't about the project. It was a corporate ghost telling me that I wasn't safe unless I was struggling. I used the 72-hour window to refuse that data. I looked at the leaden shadow and said, this transaction is unauthorized. I do not recognize this stress as part of my sovereign reality. Then I used the revision protocol to see the project as already resolved with maximum profit and minimum effort. Because I didn't validate the shadow within the 72-hour window, the glitch dissolved, and the project moved forward with a golden ease that defied linear logic. This is the power of the crystalline observer. You are not your thoughts, and you are certainly not your corporate roles. You are the auditor who decides which thoughts are allowed to become real. The matrix thrives on your leaden compliance. It wants you to accept the facts of the 3D world as final. But the sovereign expert knows that facts are just the echoes of past vibrations. If you change the vibration within the 72-hour window, the facts are forced to change. You are effectively checkmating the system by refusing to play by its rules of cause and effect. In the quantum field, the effect, the feeling of freedom, can precede the cause, the physical event. To perform this audit, you must become hyper-aware of your internal dialogue. Are you still speaking the language of the insurance world? Are you still calculating your worth based on leaden metrics of productivity? Or are you speaking the language of the Fibonacci spiral, the language of effortless expansion and golden results? Every time you catch yourself in a leaden narrative, you have 72 hours to rewrite it. This is not about lying to yourself. It is about strategic recoding. You are choosing a high-definition reality over a low-definition simulation of struggle. As we move forward, you must be willing to let go of the leaden identity that the system gave you. You are no longer a worker trying to survive the matrix. You are a sovereign strategist auditing a reality into existence. You are using the 72-hour window to ensure that your neural ledger only reflects the gold of your highest potential. In the next block, we are going to dive into the revision protocol, the actual hybrid technique I used to rewrite my days and assume my current state of absolute liberty. We are going to learn how to enter the subconscious editing room and replace the leaden shadows with the golden blueprints of your future.
We are going to dive right into the core of the 72-hour window now. Let's talk about how Neural Plasticity is actually the secret editing software for your manifestation process, and how we use the revision protocol to override the leaden data of the day. In my years managing assets and navigating the high-stakes, leaden world of insurance, I was taught that once a loss was recorded, you had to manage the fallout. You were a victim of the fact. But in the Sovereign Laboratory, we use the revision protocol, a sophisticated hybrid of Neville Goddard's spiritual insight and modern neuroscience, to audit and overwrite the neural recording of those facts before they consolidate. When you experience a leaden event, your brain creates a temporary synaptic tag. If you go to sleep in that state of stress, you are effectively saving that file into your long-term DNA. The revision protocol is your cancel command. It is the moment you refuse to let the matrix archive a version of reality that doesn't serve your golden expansion. The protocol begins in the state akin to sleep, SATS. This is the moment when your brainwaves drop from the analytical beta frequency into the fluid, suggestible theta frequency. In this state, the gatekeeper of your conscious mind, the part of you that says, "but the bank account is empty," or "but the deal failed," is offline. This is your sovereign window. Instead of replaying the leaden events of your day with anxiety, you perform a neural rewrite. You take the scene that caused you stress, perhaps a difficult financial meeting or a moment of self-doubt, and you edit it in your imagination until it conforms to your golden signature. You don't just think about a different outcome, you vibrate as if that new outcome is the only data point that ever existed. Biologically, this is a form of memory reconsolidation. Every time you recall a memory, it becomes labile, meaning it becomes fluid and changeable for a short period. By recalling a leaden corporate event while in a deep theta state and intentionally changing the emotional charge and the visual outcome, you are literally hacking your synaptic pathways. You are telling your brain this new golden version is the truth. The old version was just a glitch in the simulation. Because the brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined event in theta and a 3D physical event, it begins to prune the neurons associated with the stress and potentiate the neurons associated with the success. You are using the 72-hour window to ensure the leaden data is deleted before it reaches the hard drive of your DNA. When I was transitioning into my life of quantum sovereignty, I used this protocol every single night. I would look at the leaden transactions of my day, the fears about leaving my career, the doubts about my investments, and I would rewrite them into golden victories. I would see the no become a yes. I would feel the lack become abundance. I wasn't being delusional, I was being strategically surgical. I was refusing to allow the corporate shadow to dictate my future neural architecture. I realized that if I could win in the theta doorway, the 3D world would eventually have no choice but to reflect that victory. The facts of the insurance world are only as strong as your vibrational consent to them. When you withdraw consent through revision, the facts begin to dissolve. This is the checkmate of the sovereign expert. You are using your internal editing software to ensure that your neural ledger is always balanced in your favor. Most people are passive recorders of their lives. They let the matrix write the script, and then they wonder why they are stuck in a leaden loop. But as a sovereign strategist, you are the editor-in-chief. You use the 72-hour window to edit out the struggle and enhance the ease. You are aligning your brain with the Fibonacci spiral of your highest potential, ensuring that every new curve of your life is built on a golden foundation. This level of neuro-architecting is exactly why we are building this community. We are moving away from the slave frequency of constant reaction and into the sovereign frequency of conscious creation.
If you are ready to stop being a recorder of the old system and start being the director of your own timeline, you need to stay tuned to this broadcast. Subscribe to the channel now and join our circle of sovereigns. When you subscribe, you are signaling to the field that you are no longer a battery for the old leaden reality, but a master of your own golden frequency. Hit the button and let's amplify this revision resonance together. The revision protocol is not a one-time fix, it is a daily calibration. It is the hygiene of the sovereign soul. Just as you wouldn't leave a financial discrepancy in your books, you shouldn't leave a leaden memory in your mind. Every night is an opportunity to clear the cache. By the time you wake up, your DNA antenna has been retuned. You are no longer broadcasting the leaden stress of yesterday. You are broadcasting the golden certainty of your new reality. This is how I vibrated myself out of the insurance world. I didn't wait for the physical exit. I revised my way into freedom until the 3D world had no choice but to provide the exit hatch. In the final block, we will discuss the 72-hour checkmate. What happens after 3 days of consistent revision? I will show you how to identify the golden signs of your reality shifting and how to maintain your ASIP state as the 3D world begins to reorganize itself around your new neural code. You are the master of the ink, and the information is waiting for your final audit. It's time to complete the neural rewrite and step into your absolute liberty. We are now entering the final stage of the protocol, the 72-hour checkmate. This is where the ink dries and the new golden reality begins to solidify in your 3D world, forcing the matrix to reorganize itself around your new neural code. In the world of high-level asset management and insurance, we had a saying, "The data doesn't lie." But in the sovereign laboratory, we know that data is only as strong as the observer who validates it. When you complete the 72-hour rewriting method, you are effectively performing a checkmate against your old leaden timeline. After 3 days of consistent revision and refusal to validate the stress of the past, your brain reaches a state of neural finality. The synaptic tags from your old corporate anxieties are pruned away, and the new golden connections become the default settings of your subconscious. You are no longer trying to change. You have already changed at the level of your DNA. This process follows a specific mathematical decay of the past. During the first 24 hours, the old leaden event still has a strong electromagnetic charge. If you don't intervene, your brain spends the second 24-hour cycle looking for environmental confirmation of that stress. By the third 24-hour cycle, the 72-hour mark, the brain performs a system save. If you have successfully replaced the data through the revision protocol, the brain saves the golden version as the primary file. This is why the 72-hour mark feels like a shift in the atmosphere of your life. The matrix no longer has a biological hook to hang its limitations on. You have effectively vibrated yourself out of that specific frequency range, and because you are no longer a match for the problem is forced to dissolve. In my own transition from the insurance market to absolute liberty, I noticed that after 72 hours of disciplined revision, the problems that seemed like catastrophic liabilities would simply vanish. A financial bottleneck that seemed unsolvable would suddenly clear because a random email arrived, or a person who was blocking my progress would suddenly be moved to a different department. This isn't magic. It is the mechanical result of your new vibrational signature. In the quantum field, the observer's expectations collapse the wave of possibility into a single particle of reality. By holding the golden expectation for 72 hours, you have locked the wave into a new position. You have corrected the ledger, and the 3D mirror has no choice but to reflect the new balance. The 72-hour checkmate is also about the persistence of the assumptive state. In the corporate world, they teach you to be realistic, which is just a let-in code word for be a victim of current circumstances. They want you to wait for physical proof before you believe in a result. But as a sovereign strategist, you know that your neural firing pattern is the only proof that matters. If you can hold the golden version of your reality for 72 hours without returning to the leaden static of the how, you have crossed the threshold of quantum sovereignty. You have moved from seeking a result to being the result. This is the ultimate checkmate because it renders the old system's tools of control, fear, urgency, and scarcity completely useless against you. You are now operating from a position of absolute internal authority.
Think of your brain as a crystalline supercomputer. Every thought is a line of code. For years, the insurance world and the corporate matrix have been installing leaden malware in your system, programs that tell you that wealth is hard, that freedom is risky, and that you must grind to survive. The 72-hour rewriting method is your system restore. By the end of the third day, the malware has been quarantined and deleted. Your DNA antenna, which is naturally tuned to the Fibonacci spiral of growth, is finally clear of interference. You begin to experience high-definition synchronicities. You start to see opportunities that were always there but were invisible to your old leaden neural filter. This is where the sovereignty of choice becomes your primary tool. When you reach the 72-hour checkmate, you realize that you don't have to fight the old world, you just have to stop validating it. If a leaden shadow appears, a bill, a doubt, a piece of bad news, you simply look at it and say, I'll give you 72 hours to prove you are real, but in the meantime, I am rewriting you into gold. Most of the time, the shadow won't even last the first 24 hours because it no longer finds a fear response to feed on. You have become vibrationally transparent to the matrix. You are no longer a battery for their stress. You are a generator of your own golden reality. As you master this protocol, you will find that your recovery time from setbacks becomes shorter and shorter. What used to take you months of leaden grieving now takes you a 72-hour cycle of quantum strategy. You become an expert narrator of your own life, moving with the lightness of someone who knows the checkmate is already accomplished. You are no longer afraid of the ink of the day because you know you hold the eraser. You are the architect of your own spiral, and with every 72-hour cycle, you are building a temple of absolute liberty. Before I sign off, I want to thank you for staying with us until the end, for watching, and for being here with us. It takes a truly dedicated mind to move from the leaden roles of the past into the golden authority of a sovereign expert. I am deeply grateful for your presence in this circle and for your commitment to recoding your own reality. Your evolution is the catalyst for a new world of liberty. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to continue mastering these quantum protocols. By joining us, you are amplifying the golden resonance of a community that refuses to be limited by the old system. If you are ready to dive deeper into the science of Neuro-Revision, the links to the books and free materials are in the description below. These are the blueprints that helped me exit the corporate world and build a life of absolute sovereignty. Start your 72-hour rewrite today. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep auditing your day, keep rewriting your script, and remember that you are the only one who holds the pen.